왕구요래 ene tenjin 잡은 종아 사기 ten중기 ten지를 ten네 나라저 생기 응안진 배시 너무 산다 계약에 배 시루층에 다 될어야 에네 갑대상에 저러도가 나라저 안다 잡아들는 당의 용기 ten시 슈니 민도라 중심직된 춘야던 르스군의 개보신 ten시제주 참여가 ten중사의 책임을 시우즈에서 ten사되기 샹라라레바 샹라라마레바 라왕의 주의 천에 요마레스 ten스 중사되기 샹라 아니 라레바 샹라 ten에 시 다샤바 사마도 그게 팬은 되게 매버지 마레스 ten시 춘이면도라 중심직된 춘야던 중사되기 균적이 땡질을 써고 말한서 지금 통주게 단 냠용 용돼야 되지 그 규인을 때네 도시 용돼버지기 뒤에 아니 또바 딱성 소리지기 마도 그게 팬은 맹해지 말레스 ten시 춘이면도는 중심직된 춘야 르스군의 개보시 ten시제주 참여가
Let me first pay salutation to Buddha Shakyamuni, who taught the truth of dependent origination, Pratitya Samubhada. And among all the great spiritual teachers of the world, one thing that really defines the Buddha as a unique teacher from the Buddhist point of view is his teaching on dependent origination. And dependent origination, Pratitya Samubhada, really captures the essence of Buddha's insight and Buddha's teaching. Now, when we look at the term itself, dependent origination, Pratitya Samubhada, and in Tibetan is Tenjung, which is composed of two syllables. One is dependent, and second, ten. The second is Jungwa, which is origination. And these two syllables really capture a powerful insight into the understanding of the nature of reality. The first, the word dependent, really indicates the basic truth, how everything is dependent upon each other. Nothing is independent. And it is through this dependence which is the actual fundamental reality of everything. And then the second element, origination, points out how things come into being through this interrelatedness, through this dependence. So on the one hand, when you think about the concept of teaching on dependence, nothing is left that exists independently. But then we cannot conclude by saying, therefore, nothing exists. That's why the second element is important, because even though there are nothing that is independent, but through dependent relationships, things can come into being. And it is the understanding of that truth of dependent origination that can really help us, dispel, ignorance and misunderstanding about the nature of reality. So understanding dependent origination as the heart of the Buddha's teaching and the characteristic of Buddha as a teacher of dependent origination is really important.
엔데네 나라서 삼루 로당 그 토네 나 신의 사심부 쇼직세 연데 에네 대단들에 년기 초들라 착심게야 나들 또서 먼지부 용에도 이들라 자원 두시 샤네 에네 지기 심리 지기 또서 당심 용야라고 차단 이부도 용야데 또 나르즈메 로데기 용데기도가 자사가 안다 나타고 우먼주게 최적의 나라 근시 생이 개로도 편존디 사분단에 별로 충저 유린도 로저나라 매버도 되요 디지다게 통원 닝지 더버지 신이 가다슴 차단 이부되게 녀로 상황 서용의 여부 인도산에 저 꾼르벽에 펜베사바 꾼르 동에다 차나 대화다 되나 삼베 저 로다데 애니 시우지가 사셔무레스 ene pandan dawa chakwe umun chukwa sampe kadura ya chöshu ki yu shen mo sungwa nyingji sogolo sunga di ene sanjebe chö ki tangmoro kewa parudo kewa tamoro kewa nyingji di shivuji sakshubo.
So how does this, why is this understanding of dependent origination important? Because if we examine our day-to-day experience of being in the world, each of us will recognize that at the heart of our existence is a strong sense of self, I. And when you lack the insight into dependent origination, our tendency to grasp at this self as real is going to be strong. Once you have a grasping at a self as something real, then the basis for division between I and you, self and others, arises, and on this basis, our reaction, emotions arise. Attachment to those who think are close to us, who are important to us, and aversion to the people that we see as different or maybe dangerous to us. So this aversion and attachment really arises on the basis of our perception of and grasping at sense of self. Therefore, along with the Buddha's teaching on dependent origination, the other important teaching is the teaching on compassion. And the importance of the compassion as the heart of Buddha's teaching can be recognized in Chandrakirti's text, Entering the Middle Way, where he compares, when he writes the salutation at the beginning of the text, unlike other texts and other masters, he chooses compassion to be the object of his salutation at the beginning. And when he pays homage to compassion, he compares compassion to the seed that is important at the beginning for spiritual growth. He compares it to the moisture in the middle that enables the seeds to grow. And he compares to the fruition at the result as well. So pointing out the importance of compassion throughout all stages of spiritual development. So when you combine compassion and wisdom of dependent origination, then you have the heart of the Buddha's teaching.
자, 대제 인도산에다 시베 사번 남시에 유능 대의 주로 당매 통원이 시베 사번 가고 있는 사. 다 남버셔버 지초 강나나야 퇴정원의 여바시나 나고다도 퇴정원의 여바시 판 진등에게 로되기 에네 차당의 로되기 그 계용의 여바 인도산에 에네 능식이 천디 퇴정원의 여바시 나용의 여데 나고다도 주버 때문에 상바시가 타 쳐바시가 상로스의 인도산에 에네 가나 지금 그게 유딩의 여도시 로로 샤대야디 미도 상바시가 생고 띵네 khoda chöba jiga samlukta ji de kashim burisha.
So as Buddhists, our task is to cultivate these two qualities, compassion and wisdom. And with respect to wisdom, as I spoke earlier, at the heart of which is the teaching on dependent origination, or in other words, the teaching on no self. And the teaching on no self is important, and how do we cultivate this? And here, the 2nd century Buddhist master Aryadeva says the following. The root of cyclic existence is consciousness, and the objects are what consciousness experiences. When you gain insight into the no self or no reality of the objects, that's when we will exterminate the seed that will give rise to existence. So in other words, many of the problems that we face that lead also to samsara existence really are rooted in the way in which we perceive reality. Although reality lacks independent existence or self-existence, we tend to believe in the appearance, and we follow after the appearances of things being real out there. And once through cultivation of wisdom, we begin to see the absence of such independent existence, then our tendency to grasp and our tendency to have attachment based on that grasping will be loosened. And in this way, wisdom will arise.
ene ngazo ba ro lo nge so de do sibong o ni ji dong 5년이 시제체 시버 낭시 시베 현재 참말로 지금 남든 그 리거도 지금 남의 리거도 지금 되게 직도 되게 리거로 되게 또 자연도 뭐 디레션에 말한절로 되게 응원에 여봐져 나는 시기 때문에 매버지 다 주기도 와 시버 5년이 동스 다 5년이 동안 내주 되라 말한절 치질로도 돈이 애네 차단 걸로 로간다 지금 팀무 댄싱이 애네 다 로드즈 제디 고래 연구 여빈들산에 15년이 동안에 야고 저 상로 당도나 애네 된데게 15 人生 동안에 야고 저 상로 가요 왜이나 15년이 동 5년이 시제체스 15 콘데게 되베 저 탐제 전쟁원의 주것이 때내 매버지게 타 쳐버지게 삼로지도 슬레 인도산에 5년이 시제체스 근데 인도다 나란저 그게 지금 동리가 따와도 상당히 저는 5년이 동 5년이 시제체 정신 다고 했으면 15 담보 접어 주로서 되게 아니 저기 초식네 되게 가는 나와자고 우주고 롱디 시원은 시 저니지 전부데 통도 보송도 개셔시 애는 안다 직제 되게 간다 이니 최남 된주든 진 낭신 나오다든 진베 로데 아니 간다 베가 나오다도 단단히 주고 때내 매버지 그 상로지 거인들 산에 아니 저는 5년이 동 5년이 시제체 러시아 타고 있으면 되게 15 담보 접어 주로 쓰니 아니 댄진 림베 댄진 파샤다 접어 빵배 아니 냥대가 고방 아니 것도 제토 그래서 되게 러시아실로도 지체 가서 동해 상물단이 이 목대한테 매매체 간다 동해에서 댄진이 지기 여봐도 댄진세야디 신유를 주변 록시인데 다디 지도 나오는 시 대중은 주고 매버지게 코다 전이 윤두산에 애네 전은 대부분 낭시 낭도 대부분 준비 애네 갈래 봐 슈슈는 라지게 땡아를 차샤네 네 냠는 전부도 연구민들이 얘네 전주구 섬다 탑지산에 전주구 섬다 시려고 산에 동리기 따와디 니지신도 난denchen 상당히 상당히 락제게 다 제가로 니슈숨주 패지 상당히 저 년자리 상당히 그 대성로 연구 전부 되게도 봐.
So as I said earlier, one of the sources of problem is our tendency to believe in the appearance that we experience, our tendency to project onto reality things which are actually not real, and tendency to project independent existence. So as I said earlier, through cultivation of wisdom, at the heart of which is the teaching on shunyata, emptiness, one will also begin to recognize that our perception does not mirror reality, so that we don't naively believe and run after the projection that we experience through our perception. When we are able to do that, then this will free us from strong craving and grasping, and the craving is removed not simply because you wish it away, but by gaining insight into the nature of reality. So in this way, when you are able to remove craving, then the mind becomes pure. And that purity of the mind, that state, is nirvana. Nirvana is a state of mind. Therefore, earlier I said that what is required on the part of us as Buddhist practitioners is to really, pay attention to these dual processes. One is the process of deconstruction of our tendency to grasp, which is the practice of the wisdom, no self, emptiness, so that we free ourselves from grasping. The other is an active process of cultivation of qualities like compassion, such as I cited from Chandrakirti. So through this combination of cultivation of wisdom through removing ignorance and through this active cultivation of compassion, then there is a real possibility of attaining enlightenment as Buddha suggested. Therefore, it is important for us Buddhists, because otherwise, when we think about existence as characterized by suffering, if there is no way out from suffering, if there is no solution, then focus on suffering alone can be demoralizing. But the Buddha's message is ultimately a positive one. There is an end to suffering. There is a possibility of a freedom from suffering, and that is through gaining insight into the nature of reality and cultivating the qualities like compassion. And I can share with you that although I cannot claim to have deep experience myself, but I can share with you that as a result of reflecting deeply and practicing deeply over decades, it really feels once you begin to get a sense or taste, that there is a sense of freedom that comes within you. So there is a real possibility of a transformation.
Tende Indusane, Umunjukwe Sigdi, Tedaloto Sejinawa Sejane, Rangalana Neve Guru Rashindu, Sisum de da Molu, Dene Gemebo, Tode Tanya, Tembedo, Gobonro, Sage, Da Shinen Jogum de Ande, Shu Yunguminu, Mado Shen, Sig, Jolam Toyagi, Rawa, Tende, Leingudua.
So, the same author, Chandrakirti, also says that as you sharpen and develop your own qualities of the mind, and then the illumination of that, your own mind will, open up nature of reality, and through the skillful means of conventional truth, which is the method aspect of the path, then one will be able to travel to the shore of enlightenment. So, and an important part of that, which is a challenge, is to actually develop shamatha, the ability to maintain your mind completely focused and settled for a long period of time. And this is one area I still struggle myself, but still I feel that I'm able to make some progress in the direction that Chandrakirti is suggesting.
And the Shugde Umunjukwe Sigande Shugde, Tedaloto Sejanawa Sejana, Rangalana, Neve Guru, Sisum de da Molu, Dene, Todo Tanya, Tembedo, Tadon Goportoba, someday in Ro, Gomibala, Ninja, George. Tegon de Sungja Sanjan Rijeni, Molubono, Lawyer, Papajawan, and the Shugde Guzutini, Shoyanka, Jago, Nangwe, Teni, Ngaway, Dundutane, Gaverung, Shugdoki, Gave and the Jazub, how to Chodon draw Saturday, several Shugdua.
So, Chandrakirti.
Sigban Najan, Loda, Gajuna lady already, and in addition to Chanju, some the Tony Gatawa, some of the town yondu, Sig Rosalay Mudua, Sendigalia, the Chalong, Sig Tobiada, and Tinea, the Tonlong the Kakuman, Chalong Tokuri, Sambasorsi, Lolia, Sush Tigidua.
So Chandrakirti also says in that same text, actually the next verse, he says that how when you are able to gain deep insight into the nature of reality through the wisdom of emptiness, in fact, compassion will naturally arise for the beings who are suffering in the world. So the compassion for suffering beings is a byproduct of wisdom that is cultivated. And when one is able to cultivate this wisdom of emptiness and compassion, then one is equipped with the two wings, like a powerful bird. And then with these two wings of compassion and wisdom, one will be able to cruise the space towards enlightenment. So I truly feel that this kind of teaching and imagery that Chandrakirti is providing gives us kind of an optimism and hope as a practitioner. I'm in my late 80s now, and I still practice. And my hope is to be able to at least reach the second stage of the marga, which is the path of preparation, before the end of my life.
춘주간에 사인나죠 관체 직시도 차샤나 셰고 차 소시사도 춘주간에 공부요래 이래 다 디스물이 양어도 그게 구조 생애데 안데 샤마타보는 신기 동리가 나와다 장주금 다 디톤에 애니스물이 양어는 전에게 구조 태용도가 신 셰고 차 소시 고마지고 되게 시라시라 소도 적으면 거
So, in my own Tibetan tradition, as you know, there is also the Vajrayana tantric practice, which involves meditation on deity. And in my case, deity visualization has been an important part of my practice, even from my childhood, a particular form of deity, Vajravairava. But, to be frank, even though I do these practices, the practice where I really feel the greatest impact in my own mind is the cultivation of wisdom, and especially the cultivation of bodhicitta, which is the aspiration to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, grounded in compassion. These are the two main practices that really seem to make a real impact in my mind.
세상에 들이대 아니 산재의 책 당하서 배 가서 그렇게 삼단이 다 달라야 그게 대바 장야세 또 시기에 인도산에 다 안다 말에 냠용부터는 뭐서랑 라랭게는 연도 식সম을 구조돼야다 요돼야 저기 아니 지 잘람지 톱돼야다 되거로지 미워를 치유 소시도가 자선가 태어나서 쳐도 나버지네 다 공ገብ니 상무다니 아니 갈래 sem 모르는 것이 아니 시시 되어져 차 아니 서무 대코나 이게 더나 야프게 로파 저기 전이라 로데야 저기 아니 나데다 로디에르는 곰그루 째버다 자산 결혼즈 다가는 시전에다 지금 서보다 자체에 쉬고 거기에 상도 니리신도 상당히 치워이나 요된된 루르 서땡에 지나서 쳐줘서야 아니 다 간다 저기 전조 송지기 돈에 아니 자주고서부터 동리기 다 관여하되 장면이 숙견세 후다 나쇼아.
So many of us who are gathered here are followers of the Buddha. We see ourselves as practitioners of Dharma. So the reason why I shared some part of my own personal experience and practice is to really bring home the point that all of us, each one of us, if we take our Buddhist practice seriously through through meditation, and the meditation really needs to combine both analytic meditation of deep inquiry into the nature of reality, understanding of compassion, and also internalization of that through meditative practice. So this combination of both resting meditation and analytic, discerning meditation is really the way to go. And if you are able to do this, you can really see a real difference even in your day-to-day life. Once you are able to cultivate a little bit of wisdom, you change the way you see the reality and your own existence. When you are able to cultivate compassion, then you really see the difference in your own day-to-day life. And those who are serious practitioners, if we dedicate more time to personal practice, we will also be able to have aspiration to attain higher levels of realization as well. So I urge all of you to make some effort.
나라도 남주 제 공부 차상서 부정아 동직በት 아니 동당야도更lin당야로 저기 암조 사서 쉬고르디 그게 공자야 돌 사람 지 아주 상단데 투쇼된데 주의로 소시도 다 가다 가도 nga bu nga 가서 ng부든 저기 지 쉬우지게 또 초로침으로 시야디 고고 그래 다음에 차상 나고 차상도 저게 근데 고고 그래디 이네 조조의 니지신도 자주고 섬도 동력이 따와려야 상무다데 에네 상면 슉 떼우세 후다 나쇼 대야 칸에 셰셰버 지고 말에 된 말하라가 얌용부터네 상무당 에네 세직be 고모로 그저 토도 시켜윤데 뭐냐 전에 카요라에긴 요돼야지 연구도가 에네가동 부저시 수샤위네 데 더그즈기 구조돼야 또 가고래 엔데 창상로래야 지내 냠용부터네 다직 상담이나 뒤에 서버로 샤연구도가 에다 식삼모임 뭐냐 전에 서버로 차윤데 에네 처로 상월로기 에네 전조 순지기 돈에 에네 장주고 숨도 돈이 따와려야 그저 토도기 에네 상로다 나쇼 아선 나디 쉬야인 대게 엔다 간다지 최기 렉기 서르디 디 대창매 공부장 에네 후다 나쇼.
So, of course, as part of our own tradition in the monasteries, there are also rituals that are part of the traditions. In the Tibetan tradition, rituals involve, beating drums and playing cymbals and all these kind of musical instruments. And of course, they are part of the tradition, but it is important for us to remember that is the ritual of these performance of rituals is not the most important one. Because if you focus too much on the rituals, the only thing that you get is all the noise these musical instruments create. Where we should really pay more attention and focus is the inner development, inner cultivation. And inner cultivation has to be done through, as I shared before, combination of this analytic and resting approach, resting the mind, focusing it, settling the mind, then applying it, and so that you can combine. And the focus of those two approaches has to be really cultivation of wisdom, some understanding of the nature of reality, and then cultivation of compassion, and particularly bodhicitta. And if we are able to do this, as I said earlier, in my case, they've become, if you spend some time on inner cultivation through meditation, these teachings become real, they become fresh, they become alive. It is, and in fact, by making these teachings come to life in you, you will really experience the fruits and the benefits of the Buddha's teachings. So, since many of us who are gathered here are practitioners, I really wanted to make this important point. So, also at the same time, urge all of you to, put more effort into your own daily practice.
독스탄 때 호흡할 독스 때에는 내가 교부실하도가 저리 이내 자주고 섬도 동력이 따라 상로 도저야 봐 갱의 장주고 놈도 교리셔버 충분히나 지성의 갱의 마음을 중에 서게 지금 섬나로려야 로지 용야다 아니 간다지게 남기 주야기 교리야 지금 신이 줘야 지게 사실은 인도 상매 아니 상로동다가 더네 아니 가다 장주고 섬도 동력이 따와라 슉 잡아야 돼 뺏겨서 Any gang and Shanjulong to Jurisha Suna, any Mazokangan Sama Setogri.
So I can also share with you that by engaging in this kind of inner development, and particularly focusing on wisdom and compassion, it really can help increase our courage as well. For example, in the case of my dealing with the current struggle and situation of Tibet, if you think just only about it from a narrow angle, you can lose your hope. But if you look at this crisis, look at this current situation from the broader perspective of the courage that the cultivation of bodhicitta and compassion gives you, then you can have a much more resilient mind. So even in your own life, day-to-day life, there might be problems which may seem enormous and unbearable. But if you have the courage that bodhicitta and these practices can give you, you will be in a much stronger position to actually turn adversities and difficulties, not be overwhelmed by them, but actually transform them creatively into opportunities. As sort of further, assistance on your own path. So this courage coming from the practice is a powerful tool for transforming, dealing with adversities and transforming adversities into opportunities.
어다데 ngāshāshāna 도메 ene 사탄의 기회 밑다 부구차되어리 ene 사사야래 슝디이드 도스 장 엔데 산줄레니 네 슝디이드 삼로 쇼 단데기 디 쇼지 그 로레야 판도 용대하다데 민도너신다 사상가 로 장고야사데 경전디 소수 개변의 약수디 로 장배 토네 에네 영야지 다 상면에 후다 나로나스 샤인 엔터리 데 산제베 총골 산제베 총골이야 들데 어서 소셔 두스레 어데 미 출루 삼월로 미 가다 밀 편도야래 시라야고래 이네 심베 챤조 송지가 토네 에네 제 터 가서 서버다 다체의 시수도 상다 현대화돼 패질 낭배축이 캐주 서비스 패지 차대셔 당가라 삼월로 된데게다 취수지 아저다 나란즈다 가서 그렇게 네 시계 판매나 마유대비 취수 차대요 다디 렌단전지 임버지 모시베 토네 그저 톱두기 지금 냠렌천이 숙지되기 있나 애니 지금 정부에 대가는데 주로 매월 요래 애니 주로 잠만데 요래 지금 디디기 맹알이야 오늘 지금다 왜 산제베 냠렌천이 지금 디디 오늘 지금 카요 라요기 지금 중재로 거로 동야도 가서 뭐지 쇼나 대담배 샴된 조리 대배 거진 소야리 산디 사물로 공부하시 아니 후다나 쇼
So in my own case, I was a young child born in the remote part of Tibet, in the northeastern part of Tibet, and brought to central Tibet. And ever since, I had the opportunity to be schooled in the study of the Buddhist texts. And, many of these Buddhist texts are treatises written by great Indian masters, and which really present these teachings on wisdom and compassion. And I have personally found them to be deeply impactful while in Tibet, and especially ever since coming into exile. I have familiarized myself with these texts, contemplated on the content of these teachings, and I personally find them to be a powerful source, not just for personal practice, but also mental resilience, to give me courage. And I think this is really important to keep in mind. Today we have a large gathering of representatives from various Buddhist countries. This is an international gathering. Of course, Buddhism is one among many religions on this planet. Yes, all great major traditions of the world carry a message that is same, love, compassion, and so on. But I would say that what makes Buddhist, the Buddha Dharma unique is the richness of the resources that are found in the tradition for inner development, particularly through the combination of what I called analytic, approach and more concentrative, restful meditation practice. The meditation practice is very rich and aimed at transforming our own mind. So that, I think, is an important feature of Buddha Dharma. And if we, recognize this, and if we embody it in our day-to-day life, then the fruits of that embodiment will be obvious to everybody, not just to Buddhists. There are many different faith traditions in this world. There are also many people who do not subscribe to any particular tradition. But for all of them, if we as Buddhists can illustrate through our own life the benefit and value of Buddha Dharma, I would say this would be a service to the Buddha Dharma. This would be a way of saying thank you, expressing our gratitude to our teacher, Buddha. So this is something that I wanted to share with you.